Hey, tennis fans. I'm Ben Lewis for Matchpoint Canada, Canada's premier tennis podcast. And right now, checking in on Monte Carlo. We saw a couple incredible semifinals matches, and we're upcoming on the finals for Sunday. And so happy to have Vansh Vermani of the Tennis One app, product and content producer. And Vansh, first time coming on the podcast. Thanks so much for joining me. Let's start right away with Monte Carlo. Carlos Alcaraz reaching his first Masters 1000 final of 2025. Just your thoughts. How impressive has he been this week overall, and how sharp he looked in that semifinal against Davidovich Fokina?
Yeah, I mean, pleasure to be here, Ben. I'm a big fan of your work, and happy to have the chance to do this. Monte Carlo coming in, there were a lot of questions for Alcaraz coming in. This season with the really high standards that he set the last 4 years. You probably wouldn't give him an A rating for the season so far, and so this was an important reset for him. Only a second time playing Monte Carlo, um, which is which is kind of strange. But he's had some injuries, the last couple of times, and he comes in, great effort against Francisco, coming back from a set down, nice win over Altmaier, and then obviously the match against Feast, which could very very well end up being the turning point. But just talking about the semi, you have a guy in Davidovich Fokina, and they both have similar-ish game styles when when they take the court. I would say, I mean, just the combination of like finesse and firepower off the ground is a tantalizing prospect as far as Davidovich Fokina is concerned. He doesn't have the biggest serve, but he has so many other things that he can do to disrupt your rhythm. And I thought for Carlos, compared to his other matches, he actually came out firing from the get go. He went up in early break, but then he got pegged back a little bit. The forehand was a little bit inconsistent in the first set, I felt like. But the difference in the match really was that Davidovich Fokina was having to fight tooth and nail for every service game, whereas Alcaraz was, if you looked at like service points played by the end of the match, it was 109 for Davidovich Fokina and like 73 for Alcaraz. So a
Yeah.
huge gap there. And that eventually, I think that ended up catching up with Davidovich, but I was very impressed by his fight in the second set as well, that he managed to just keep it only to one break. And Carlos played a great tiebreak after being up 5-2 in the first set and having another set point on his serve at 5-3. So for Alcaraz to come through in the big moments and just kind of find his best tennis, because we know he's kind of a guy who can fluctuate a little bit in and out in matches, with his concentration, his focus, or just inexplicable drops in level. But he always seems to manage, in the really big moments in his career when he's won the biggest titles. That's usually what it's been about. It's in a way reminding me a little bit of how he won Roland Garros last year. It wasn't like smooth sailing start to finish, but he had to fight through those ebbs and flows and resist the urge to kind of overhit sometimes.
Yeah, and look, I kind of wonder with the surface change and Carlos Alcaraz, it feels, I think, from the outside looking in for some tennis fans, like, oh, he's having a down year and struggling. He is still 19-4, has a chance to move back to world number two if he wins this thing against Lorenzo Musetti. And I think you hit the nail on the head. The ebbs and flows. Do you feel like Clay is a little more forgiving because he had that slip up in the first set, seemed to be dominating in control 5-2, plays a couple kind of sloppy-ish games, but you can always right the ship on Clay, which he seems to know how to do.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of also the serve maybe not being the most dominant factor like it is on hard courts.
Yeah.
Sometimes with Paolo's serve right now, he's not hitting the spots very well, and he's gone through a technical change as well in his serve, and the motion looks a lot more fluid. But in terms of its effectiveness, we're still yet to see like major a major change. But when he doesn't hit a spot as well on clay, I think he's able to make up for it in so many other ways that might be just a little bit tougher on a faster surface. So I think that's part of it as well. And then also the flexibility he has with his return position. That's always an interesting dynamic when he stands way far back on the return.
Yeah.
And then other times he's kind of coming in. So he's mixing that in as well. And he's just giving so many different looks to his opponent. And you don't feel like you have your feet set.
I want to talk a little bit about that quarterfinal match. Arthur Fils, now three consecutive quarterfinals at Masters 1000s, and you watch maybe the highlights, or for those who caught it live, this felt like a showcase of two of the best young athletes in this sport, two of the best young athletes in the world. And Arthur Fils seems charging, towards that top 10, getting better and better. What did you make of his showing? How strong he is, transitioning from hardcore to clay, and how much maybe he can test some of these top guys.
Yeah, I'm I've been very impressed by him, by his development. The last year or so, and he seems to be doing well on all surfaces now, which is which is great because obviously he won the title in Lyon a couple of years ago. But then last year he wins those two 500s, very different conditions in Tokyo, really fast hard courts,
Yep.
and Hamburg as well. And he's been a fourth rounder at Wimbledon already, so he seems to have that part of his game already down. And what's so impressive, he's so physically developed already, at his age, and I feel like that's a big advantage he has over so many of the other younger players. Obviously has a massive forehand, maybe I think the heaviest forehand in combination of like speed and spin and RPMs. So that really shoots off the court. But he's just such a great athlete as well. So fun to watch, incredibly explosive. And against Carlos, he was kind of going toe to toe in those exchanges and winning a lot of them. Including showing off some great finesse and touch. And he had some real looks at winning this match. 5-all, love 40 in the second set, and but so Carlos really had to dig absolutely tooth and nail, and it was just one of those wins that maybe we'll look back at the end of the clay court season,
Yeah.
as far as Alcaraz is concerned. So
Yeah, yeah, and obviously Alcaraz the opportunity to here to win his first Masters 1000 in over a year, which sounds surprising. And he'll face the Italian Lorenzo Musetti, who certainly had to fight tooth and nail to get past Alex de Minaur, who had an incredible run. Took the opening set against Musetti 6-1. The Italian rallies, wins this match ultimately in three. Um, Kind of a breakthrough tournament here for Musetti, reaching his first career Masters 1000 final.
yeah, huge breakthrough, and he's had to do it. He's had to just scrap and claw his way out of so many holes, in this tournament. Being down a set in four of the five matches that he's played, and almost out in the first round against Yun Bu, and
Yep.
nearly losing to Lehechka as well. And the match today. I mean, he just I think Diminor comes out and he just plays. He has the perfect game plan and just rushes Lorenzo, and he's able to get on top of him early in the rallies. And Musetti is a little bit rushed and not quite able to use the tremendous variety that he has. But then I felt like the rain delay came at the end of the first set. The conditions became a lot more heavier, and Musetti really started to play, much more steady from the ground, and his serving picked up, and you just got a feeling the complexion of the match changed. There were a couple of really crucial holds that he had, and looks, and I was just very impressed by his ability physically and mentally in these matches all week to come back from a set down. Just like really impressive. It's 6 of the 8 times that he's been down a set this year, he's come out on top. So
Yeah,
good,
certainly
good stuff.
new kind of mental resilience from his side, and he hadn't beaten Stefanos Tsitsipas at any time in their matchups before coming through in that quarterfinal, which was massive. Alex de Minaur, I never thought he would have much success on clay if you look back 2, 3, 4 years ago. And really, I always look back to him breaking through and reaching the finals in Toronto just a couple of seasons ago. His career arc since that point has completely taken off. He's solidified himself as a top 10, kind of top 8 type of mainstay. And now is this guy someone who can do damage on the red dirt as well?
Yeah, I mean, makes the Roland Garros quarterfinal last year as well. You know, another semifinal, and this time, Monte Carlo last year he was in the quarters already, and I'm impressed by his versatility because we talk a lot about like what a great fighter he is or how much he's like sort of maximizing his career, but I feel like as a tactically he's improved so much. He's added a lot more firepower. He plays the situations, reads it much better now, and on clay he's moving a lot better than I've seen in previous years. I think he just through years of experience and through losing so many tight matches, he's found a way to just kind of trust his game in the big moments. And he didn't come through today, but it really could have gone either way. I mean, it was just a couple of points here and there in the third set tiebreaker that he let two love. But yeah, I've been very impressed by his ability to kind of raise his ceiling. Since that Toronto thing you mentioned, where
Mhm.
now all of a sudden, yeah, he has a real shot at being in the top five at some point this year, I would say.
Yeah, and big wins over Medvedev 2-2. I don't think it was really the Grigor Dimitrov we're used to seeing, but double bageling Grigor Dimitrov,
Yeah.
which is crazy to think of. Um, Looking at this finals matchup, Musetti versus Alcaraz, head to head, Carlos leads it 3-1, but Musetti does have a win against him. Anything to maybe add to some belief for Musetti in this matchup?
Yeah, I mean that's huge because Alcaraz has a great record in finals, 17-5, and one of those like you mentioned, Hamburg 2022, and that was a really hard fought three-setter won by Lorenzo. So you can take some belief in that as well, and you can take belief in the fact that he has been able to pick up his game as the matches have gone on in this tournament. He will need to start, I think, a little bit better against Carlos, because Carlos, will maybe won't let him off the hook as much as some of the other players have this week. And just, the belief that Alcaraz has, and also, it's going to be a tough turnaround for Lorenzo. I feel like physically he's going to need absolutely everything he has in the tank. He's going to need to play a little bit more riskier than he has been playing, earlier in rallies, to try to get Alcaraz on the back foot. Using the backhand down the line, I think is going to be really big for him. So I'm very curious to see how they both start off. And I mean, I have to give the edge to Alcaraz, but Lorenzo is obviously no slouch on the surface, far from it. So should be entertaining.
Yeah, look, Novak Djokovic, we know making the early exit, obviously, here in Monte Carlo. He says the priority is Roland Garros. We won't see Yannick Sinner till Rome. If Alcaraz wins this title, and of course he is the favorite, do we have to kind of safely say it's Alcaraz as the prohibitive favorite for the French Open?
Yeah, I think so. I think just based on the where the field is at right now, and if he does come in winning this title here, I mean, last year he ends up winning it without basically playing most of the clay season, and so we know he does tend to, elevate his game generally anyway in best of five. So I just feel like, having that little extra confidence, I thought coming in, for to set expectations, he would need to win one of the three big clay titles of the 1000s. And if he manages to do that already in Monte Carlo, it takes off so much pressure for him, I feel like, heading into RG. So I probably would make him the favorite, especially if he wins tomorrow.
I want to touch on one more player before we go. I thought maybe he's going to right the ship, obviously transitioning to his favorite surface. Casper Ruud with a bit of a head scratching loss to Alexei Popyrin, who's not really known as a clay court specialist whatsoever. What does the Norwegian have to do to get back on track here? It's been a pretty tough 2025.
Yeah, it's been a rough stretch for him, actually, really dating back to Roland Garros semifinal last year, where he was in really good shape and won that first set against Alexander Zverev, and then had a bit of a stomach bug. And I feel like that kind of set him back for a few months. Just physically, wasn't quite the same. He did manage to get to the semis of the ATP finals, but this clay court season last year, he just has so many points to defend, and I just feel like he was playing like a guy with that weight on his shoulders towards the end of that match, and he wasn't as proactive as, this time last year when he was taking his backhand down the line a bit earlier. He was, stepping in, and obviously the biggest, baddest shot in the court is his amazing topspin forehand, and just he has to look to get that in play as much as he can, because against the very best players, if he's on the back foot, he's having to defend in the backhand corner. It's a lot tougher for him to just, turn those rallies around and steal them in big moments. So I think we're going to see a good result from him, at some point between now and Roland Garros, and he has proven us wrong so many times at the French Open. I mean, three straight semis in a row, a couple of finals. So I feel like he still has time to get his clay court game back, and I would expect like maybe at least one semifinal in the next few tournaments.
Yeah, we're certainly early on in the clay court season. You have any predictions for our final between Musetti or Alcaraz?
No, I think I'm just have to lean Alcaraz, just based on everything I've seen this week and the elevation from him in the quarters and semis, and also just given the fact that Musetti is going to be coming in a little bit depleted, and in this sort of a form, and the way that Alcaraz finished off the match against Davidovich Fokina, I just think it's going to give him such a boost and such a confidence builder. So I would imagine Alcaraz takes it, but I think we're going to get at least one tight set.
I'm with you. I'm going to go Carlitos in two sets, guys. Let us know your predictions in the comments below. You've been watching Match Point Canada. Hit the subscribe button. Vanch, thanks so much for joining us. Where can we find your work?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a real pleasure. I mean, you can find me on Twitter at VanshV2K. And I do a lot of post match analysis. I post a lot of stats. It's always fun just following the game and interacting with all the fans. And you can also follow at Tennis One app. So I do a lot of the social content for them, on X and all the other social platforms. And yeah, download the Tennis One app as well. You'll find a lot of things that I'm involved in inside that. And yeah, that's about it.
Thank you guys so much for watching us at Match Point Canada. If you like our work, follow along, hit the subscribe button below.